Church in 2011 with his wife Melanie and their sons Spencer and Stephen. He served in the United States Air Force for nearly 23 years and achieved the rank of Senior Master Sergeant. During his time in service, he served 2 deployments supporting Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and the State Department initiatives through the Middle East and Central Asia. In 2016, Pastor Jerome retired from the Air Force as a superintendent of the United States Air Force Band of the West. It was his love for music and his servant's heart that led him to serving on the City Church worship team as a bassist shortly after joining the church. Currently, Pastor Jerome is living his God-given purpose at City Church, where he uses his leadership, business, and human resource skills to serve and lead people in the church. He is responsible for leading staff and volunteer teams to accomplish the City Church vision and mission locally and with City Church's global mission partners. Thank you so much for being here as our invocator today and for your service to our country and our community. Please join me in welcoming Pastor Jerome Odo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for your grace and mercy. I lift up our wonderful city, that you may dwell among us and fill the hearts of the people and the leaders of San Antonio with your love and hope. Watch over us all and protect us from those that wish to do us harm. Lord, I pray for our city leaders, the staff present today that serves this body, the council members as they serve their people, and the mayor as he serves the entire city. Pour out an extra portion of blessing on them for their willingness to serve this great community and ease their burden of leadership as they serve the ones that live here. Lord, grant them wisdom here today as they work together, even through differences of decisions that are pleasing to you and to serve this diverse people in San Antonio. I humbly ask all this in your mighty name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Pastor Jerome. Okay, we have no minutes to approve today, and so we have a full consent agenda. All items 7 through 25. I'll note for the record that item 6 has been withdrawn and will not be heard today. So I'll ask my colleagues now if there are any items to pull from the consent agenda. Items 7 through 25 be heard individually. We need somebody to pull it. Yeah, we need somebody to pull it. Okay, item 19. Any others? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the balance of the consent agenda. Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. We do have one citizen signed up to speak on consent items. Jack Finger, 18. Jack Finger? Okay, we'll move to council discussion on the consent agenda. All items 7 through 25 with the exception of 19. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Call the vote. Please vote. Councilmember White. Use your audio, Councilmember White.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, we have a few ceremonials today, recognitions. I'd like to start with, is Jeff Webster in the house? Mario. Mario Barrera, the chair of the Greater San Antonio Chamber, and any of your leadership, if you'd like to come forward as I read the following proclamation. Whereas the Greater San Antonio Chamber of Commerce will mark its 130th anniversary and host its 2024 annual gala at the Grand Hyatt San Antonio Riverwalk, December 13th, 2024, the celebration will be attended by many business, community, and government partners. And whereas since 1894, the Greater Chamber has been a positive change maker in the San Antonio community and beyond. As the primary voice of business in the city, the Greater Chamber has mobilized its members to promote and drive important initiatives that benefit San Antonio. It has done so by bringing together members and leaders from all areas of the city to address the region's issues and unique challenges. And whereas over its history, the Greater Chamber has assisted in the establishment of San Antonio's military installations, ensured adequate infrastructure to support the city's growth, brought the 1968 World's Fair to San Antonio, helped create the Riverwalk, played a key role in forming the South Texas Medical Center, secured legislation creating Brooks City Base, spawned the creation of Fiesta Commission, San Antonio Sports, Biomed SA, and much more. And whereas holding this distinction of being the oldest chamber of commerce in South Texas, the Greater Chamber is also the largest with the widest reach across various industries, and today has approximately 1,700 members. And whereas as it was 130 years ago, the Chamber remains the most influential pro-business organization in the region, and its continued focus is on supporting San Antonio's growth and progress and enhancing the quality of life for its residents by promoting its rich culture along with the business community's economic and civic priorities. And whereas on a daily basis, the Chamber continues to advocate and champion the business community and has implemented initiatives and programs to help ensure its organizations prosper, and the San Antonio community remains the place to live, work, play, and do business. Now, therefore, I, Ron Nirenberg, Mayor of the City of San Antonio, in recognition thereof, do hereby proclaim December 13th, 2024, to be Greater San Antonio Chamber's 130th Anniversary Day in San Antonio, Texas, and extend heartfelt congratulations and appreciation for its profound positive impact, bolstering our local economy and enhancing San Antonio's global profile for over 130 years. Welcome, Mario. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The floor is yours, sir.
Oh, okay. Well,
and your team.
all right. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, members in the audience, thank you for the recognition. It's been my honor to serve as the chair of the Chamber on this 130th year. I think we've done so much in the past. We have obviously the future to look forward to, and I think the biggest contribution we've been able to do this year is do a collaboration and cooperation with all the other sister chambers. And so throughout the year, we've been getting together with the newly minted Metro San Antonio Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, the South Texas Business Partnership, and we've been working collaboratively together because that's what San Antonio needs, is more collaboration and cooperation. And so on behalf of Jeb Webster, our president and CEO, Diego Alderete, and Gabby Salinas, who are here with me as well. Jeff could not be here. He's at a meeting. Katie Ferrier, our Senior VP of Public Policy, couldn't be here either. But I just want to thank you all for the recognition and hope to see you all tomorrow evening at our gala, or as many of you all as can be there. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Mario. And I think we may have some comments, so if you want to stay there just for a minute, we'll start with Councilmember Villagrán.
Thank you, Mario, and thank you for your leadership. I think you hit it right on the head in terms of collaboration as we move forward and as we look and see ourselves. Thank you and Chamber leadership for being Team San Antonio. And we have opportunities, we have challenges ahead, and I think the more we come together and talk about these issues, the more that we can get things done here in San Antonio and regionally also. So thank you so much for your leadership. I will see you on Friday, it's a great celebration, 130 years, understanding that we are committed to business and small business in particular. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Villagrán. Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
I just wanted to say, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say congratulations. This is a huge milestone. I'm excited to celebrate with you all tomorrow night, and y'all have put together a fantastic team, and so you'll have a lot to be proud of. Look forward to it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Alderete Gavito. Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mario and the team, congratulations on 130 years. I'm really excited to celebrate with you all tomorrow, but I wanted to focus in on one of your committees, the Education and Workforce Committee, and I have been regularly attending for the last 5 years, and I do miss some of them. I try to zoom in as much as possible to the ones that I can't make it, but you all are making such a positive impact. I feel like, and I'm sorry, by the way, I missed yesterday's meeting, but the educators that you all have there, combined with the workforce, the experience that Tyler from Boeing has brought in over this last couple of years, I think he's served a couple of years now, and the position is just critical to the success of our graduates as they graduate from college and try to find a job. So I just wanted to thank you, and thank you for your efforts there with Ready to Work and with Workforce Solutions Alamo. I mean, y'all try to ring the whole gamut, and so I think that that's one of the committees that doesn't get as publicly recognized, and I figured I could talk about it today and just say what a great job you all are doing in that regard. But in general, also thank you to your support for cybersecurity, and in particular, thank you, Mario, for coming with us to the Pentagon the other day or last year with the port. We're going to have to continue to work on that, and I know that you will, and so looking forward to a lot more advocating with you all. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Rocha Garcia. Councilmember Courage.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chairman Rivera, for your commitment to the organization and to the community. The Chamber has done so much to educate and motivate and unite businesses on a lot of key issues that are important to the city. And so for your work and the work of your organization, I think this entire community owes a lot of appreciation. And hopefully you continue to be successful, the organization thrives for another 130 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage and Mario, and to your entire leadership team, and please extend my best to Jeff as well. Really appreciate what we were doing last week in particular. I know it's going to be some tough debates up in Austin, but one thing is for certain, we all have to get behind our state's youth as well as our investment in our state's youth in terms of public education, particularly important. And appreciate the Chamber's position on that. So thank you, Mario.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you all. God bless you all.
Thank you. And on that note, we have some champions in the house, some volleyball champions. Make some noise if you're from Las Palmas or Perales. We have the Police Athletic League volleyball champions recognized here, and if I could call all of y'all forward to be recognized by our city council. You can come on up, ladies. You might recognize one of the names. I'll let Councilmember Castillo introduce some VIPs on your team, but congratulations to these folks. They are volleyball champions in our community, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Castillo to welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor mentioned, today we have some very special guests with us from Edgewood ISG. We have been graced with the presence of some very special champions from the Perales Elementary School, 2nd and 3rd grade. The Little Runners, a team, and their 5th grade Royal team as well from the Las Palmas Leadership School of Girls. They're 6th grade volleyball champions. So let's give them a round of applause. These teams are from the Police Athletic League, which is a program that aims to foster better relationships with police officers and youth by engaging in sports and recreational activities. We appreciate this effort being put through Edgewood's volleyball teams, and apparently the Las Palmas Bobcats may have a bit of a powerhouse team, as this is their 2nd time that they've brought them here to the A session. I hope y'all are enjoying this visit to the City Hall chambers, and a shout out to the coaches for making this happen and continuing to win time after time again. So there's a handful of coaches here, and I apologize if I miss anyone, but we have Coach Olivares, Coach Megan Smith, Coach Jolene Garcia, and then of course our SAPD officers, Hugo, Daniel, and Joel. So just congratulations and thank y'all so much for all that y'all do in our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Would one of the coaches or maybe captains want to just introduce the group for us? You don't have to say everybody's name, but.
Hello, good morning. My name is Mr. Richard Pettis. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Perales Elementary School. It's an honor to be able to coach these young athletes and to have this opportunity to watch them progress throughout the seasons and also academically and how important this is for them. Thank you, Councilwoman Castillo, for this opportunity. Thank you all for what you do for our city of San Antonio, and the officers not only keeping us safe within our communities, but providing this opportunity for our athletes to be able to engage in. As an educator, this time we have a year with these kids, and sports helps build that connection within watching them learn and grow. As a math teacher as well, I like to collect data and accountability in some of these kids. They can see their progress as the season goes on, and how they can improve within themselves and within the schools. I've also been fortunate enough to have former athletes who started at this level now playing in college. So getting those opportunities to grow within what we provide here with the foundation and just keep at it, help them through, teaching them those opportunities and engagement in life and how to challenge themselves, set goals, and keep pursuing. We thank everybody here. We thank all of you, and especially the parents that commit the time to bringing the kids and getting them to practices and trusting us with their students as well. So thank you all for this opportunity, and we'll definitely be back again next year.
Behind Coach, Team Captain Ayema, who is Jolene Garcia's daughter. Raise your hand, Ayema. Congratulations. Councilmember Villagrán.
Yeah, and the cameraman can get back to the whole scene. You don't have to let's get the whole crowd, if you could show their faces, because I know their families are watching TVSA right now. I want to make sure that you all get on the camera. So there you guys are. I know y'all been looking for each other, but congratulations. You guys have done some great work, and I look forward to seeing you continue to work in the community. Your family is very proud of you. Your community and your neighbors are very proud of you, and I'm very proud of you. So continue the good work. Thank you, teachers and coaches, because as a former elementary school teacher, I know it is not easy to do this work, and you guys, it's a calling, and I want to thank you for answering the call and investing so much. So congratulations. Make sure you tell your family to go onto TVSA and watch this video, because you'll be on TV. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Villagrán. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations, y'all. I just want to say that most people can see now that there is an opportunity for women's sports to actually take off. There's now going to be a pro volleyball federation, so you could play all the way through college and get scholarship at whatever university you want to go to, and you could play after you graduate. So there's a lot of great women athletes. Exactly, right? There's a lot of great women athletes to look up to today, and I'm really glad you have that opportunity. Keep up the hard work. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Thank you. It's so nice to see, thank you, Mayor. It's so nice to see all of y'all's smiling faces and y'all's confident poses. Good job. Thank you, Councilwoman Castillo, for bringing them here today. I have 2 little girls, and they also play volleyball too, so maybe we can go watch out some of the games. But in sports, you learn so much. You learn about teamwork and how each of you plays such an important role. So I'm glad that y'all are learning those life lessons now, and I want y'all to keep going. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Alderete Gavito. Councilmember Courage.
Thank you. I was a teacher for 25 years. In my first year of teaching, I did PE, and I also became the coach, and I did volleyball. And I saw young people get involved in so many different sports and activities. And so you're involved in one, maybe you're involved in more than one, but stay involved. There's nothing more exciting and interesting than athletics, and so I hope all of you do well and enjoy what you do. Listen to your coach and listen to your parents and have a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage, Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to say congratulations. You all really make us proud. You elevate San Antonio. And in particular, I am just so grateful that you all want to listen to your coaches. They are always there for you. They want to help you. And thank you for being so good to one another and supportive. Teamwork is how we make everything work everywhere, right? So you all are learning at a very early age what the power of teamwork is. So congratulations, best wishes for continued success, and I look forward to seeing you all again next year. So thank you, coaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rocha Garcia. Councilmember Mickey Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to reiterate just how proud we all are of you, and I want everyone to give one more round of applause because this is really exciting. I had to think very carefully about what I was going to say next because I was a teacher as well, and I was going to say that sports are where the most growth happens, but it's teamwork is where the most growth happens as an individual and as a community. And so you guys have embarked and continue to be on a journey of growth and of friendship and of community, and I want you guys to continue to do that, continue to have fun, continue to be competitive, continue to challenge one another to be your best, and of course I have to give a special shout out to my Deputy Chief of Staff, Jolene Garcia. You guys know her as Coach, I know her as the boss, and then also I am a Garcia as well. So congratulations, keep doing what y'all do, and know that we're all here rooting for you and cheering for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mickey Rodriguez. All right, well, we'll see y'all back here at the next championship. Congratulations, y'all. Okay, lastly, I just want to recognize the fact that we have some D1 students in the audience who are here observing local government. They'll be comparing how we do business with the courthouse later. So we'll try to put our best foot forward for y'all. But if the students from Cast Tech could please stand up. And Cast and ALA, sorry. And this is a proud D1 school, so let me ask Councilmember Core to do the proper welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all so much for attending again this year. I hope you guys actually are going to get to hear a very interesting discussion today, and I hope you are able to see the way in which we are able to change and affect our society for you all in the future, and I can't wait to see you all up here on the dais one day. Enjoy City Council, and then, of course, like the Mayor said, later the courthouse. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause for our Cast Tech students, ALA students at Fox Tech. All right, we're going to go now into our individual agenda. We do have one item for condemnation, so let's clear that one out first. It's item 19. I'm sorry. We need to, let me recognize Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to reconsider the vote on the consent agenda because I need to pull item number 23 for recusal purposes.
Okay. So we can have you just move to reconsider item 23, and then we can just...
Wonderful.
That's correct,
Okay,
Mayor.
I move to
just
reconsider
item
item number 23 for recusal purposes.
All right, there's a motion and a second for reconsideration of item 23. Any discussion? Again, this will be for recusal purposes. Please vote. All right, motion carries. So let's take up item 23.
Item number 23 is an ordinance approving an agreement with Communities and Schools of San Antonio for school-based counseling services as part of the City of San Antonio Metropolitan Health District's SA Forward Plan and the Office of Mental Health and Resilience in an initial amount up to $1,119,000 for the term beginning January 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2027, with options to renew for 2 one-year terms for a total contract amount of up to $1,919,000. Funding is from the General Fund Fiscal Year 2025 adopted budget. Funding for subsequent years is contingent upon City Council approval of the annual budget and funds.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for item 23. There's a motion and a second for approval of item number 23. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote. Councilmember White? Could you use your audio, Councilmember White?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, well, let's take up item 19, which is a condemnation.
Item number 19 is an ordinance approving the acquisition through negotiation or condemnation of interests in permanent temporary parcels of land sufficient for purposes of privately owned real property and declaring the Clausen Road, Clausen Spur to Knoll Creek Drive, a 2022 bond program funded project to be a public use project and a public necessity for the acquisitions of one drainage easement totaling .21 acres, 9,228 square feet, 5 right-of-way easements totaling .53 acres, 22,914 square feet, and 9 temporary construction easements totaling .61 acres, 26,563 square feet, all located along Clausen Road from Clausen Spur to Knoll Creek Drive in NCBs 17726 and Council District 10.
All right, Councilmember White.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move that the City of San Antonio authorize the use of the power of eminent domain to acquire property for the public use project for the Clausen Road project, Clausen Spur to Knoll Creek Drive, by acquiring the following property described by the city clerk incorporated as part of this motion. I guess that the clerk just read.
The privately owned property interest consisting of 1 permanent drainage easement, 5 right-of-way easements, and 8 temporary construction easements in City Council District 10, located along Clausen Road from Clausen Spur to Knoll Creek Drive in NCB 17726. These properties are depicted in the overall project map and more particularly described by the exhibits attached and incorporated as a part of this motion.
All right, there's a motion and a second for approval of item 19. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Councilmember White?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, we'll go to item number 3.
Item number 3 is an ordinance approving a 3-year plan to phase out the use of horses and horse-drawn carriages in San Antonio, including the abolishment of ordinances and policies as they relate to Chapter 33 permitting equine-drawn carriages.
All right. Do we have the presentation, Eric?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Rick Riley, and I'm the Assistant Director for the San Antonio Police Department. The purpose of today's briefing is to introduce a 3-year plan to phase out the use of horses with horse-drawn carriages in San Antonio. As you will recall, the CCR was submitted by Council members McKee, Rodriguez, and Villagran in November of 2022, and it asked for the development of a plan to phase out the uses of horses with horse-drawn carriages in San Antonio to include the abolishment of ordinances or policies as they relate to Chapter 33 permitting equine-drawn carriages. The plan would include 3 things. First, the determination of feasibility and establishment of a program to support workforce transition from horse-drawn carriages to electric carriages or pedicabs. Second, the establishment of a prohibition of the uses of horses with carriage rides. And third, the immediate cessation of the issuance of permits, horse-drawn carriage permits, medallions, and special events permits, so that eventually all valid permits, medallions, and special events permits have expired. As a reminder of the CCR timeline, in April of this year, the CCR was heard by Governance Committee and referred to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. In May, the Transportation Advisory Board discussed the CCR and heard from horse carriage business owners and operators. In June, staff briefed the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and SAPD met with horse carriage companies. The Transportation Advisory Board again discussed the CCR at its monthly meeting. In July, CNE conducted a SA Speak Up survey, including residents, businesses, and tourists regarding the horse carriage industry, and staff briefed the Animal Care Services Board. In August, staff updated the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. Moving to September, the Economic Development Department met with the horse carriage business owners. In October, the Ready to Work Department met with horse carriage drivers. And as you recall, at special session on October 31st, we briefed an update to the full council. Today's recommendation, based upon feedback received at the October 31st City Council briefing, staff is recommending a 3-year transition plan to phase out horse-drawn carriages. As part of this plan, amendments to City Code are required, the first of which is that horse-drawn carriages will cease to operate in San Antonio effective January 1st, 2028. Operating hours will be reduced annually until that prohibition takes effect. And effective today, December 12th, 2024, no new permits to operate horse-drawn carriages will be issued, and no new horses will be licensed by Animal Care Services. What does it look like as far as the transition plan for reduction of hours? On the far left of the slide, you see the current hours today, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and then 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. That 20% reduction that will happen yearly will first occur on June 1st, 2025, when hours on Monday through Friday are moved to 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. A year later, on June 1st of 2026, the hours will be adjusted again with a 20% reduction, moving operating hours now to 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. and from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. And you can also see the impact on Saturday, Sunday, and city holidays likewise. Horse carriage business transition will be led by the Economic Development Department that will provide assistance to business owners in navigating programs available. These programs include Launch SA to assist with business plan development and Lift Fund to explore 0% interest loan eligibility. Additionally, Workforce Development will assist carriage operators in workers' transition and will schedule resource fairs monthly and coordinate to connect carriage operators with local workforce partners and education institutions. Fairs will focus on increasing awareness of City's Ready to Work program and will present programs that match workers' interest and their abilities, guide workers interested in education or training, including tuition support and support from job placement specialists at the end of training. So again, to reiterate, the recommendation today is that staff is recommending City Council approve amendments to Chapter 33 of the City Code as follows. 1, the use of horses with horse-drawn carriages in San Antonio will cease to operate on January 1st, 2028. Operating hours of horse-drawn carriages will be reduced annually until the prohibition of horse carriage operation takes effect on January 1st, 2028. 3, no new permits to operate horse-drawn carriages will be issued effective today, December 12th, 2024. And lastly, the Animal Care Services Department will not issue new licenses for new horses to be used with horse-drawn carriages effective today, December 12th, 2024. Mayor, that completes my brief, and I'll be available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Rick. We do have many residents signed up to speak on item number 3. I'm going to call names in order of sign-up. Please note you'll have 3 minutes individually to speak. Groups may have up to 9. You can either cede your time or you can take your time. So if you'd like to cede your time to somebody else, tell me before you begin speaking. Otherwise, you take your time. I'm going to call the next name in order of sign-up, so be on the alert so you can hear the next name and we can move through and move through expeditiously. Everyone will get heard today. And I'd ask everyone to keep their reaction to comments to a minimum so people can hear their name heard and people can come forward and say, give their comments. So I'll start with Kira Ortiz. Kira Ortiz? Okay. Art Martinez Devada? Mr. Martinez, you'll be followed by Stephanie Dickinson.
Mr. Ray, they were trying to give their minutes to me in a group.
All right. I have Kira Ortiz, but I also see Kira Reeves. And Ms. Dickinson, is that you? And you're ceding your time? Oh, okay. I'm seeing this now. You're signed up as a group. Kira Ortiz, Stephanie Dickinson, and Art Martinez. All right.
Yes, Your Honor. Yeah. Okay.
Kira Reeves, Stephanie Dickinson, and Art Martinez Devada are signed up as a group. Am I correct there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Reeves, are you here? Okay. All right. Mr. Martinez, you'll have 9 minutes.
Thank you. Mayor and members of the City Council, I'm here representing Yellow Rose, HRH, Lollipop, and Bluebonnet carriage companies. The item before you is to take from our city a beloved industry. Horse-drawn carriages have traversed the streets of San Antonio for over 300 years and is an integral part of our culture, our history, and should be a part of our future. The impact of the closure of the horse carriage industry far exceeds tourism. It impacts our drivers, our owners, our vets, our suppliers, and even the horses. Our drivers are great people. We have many of them with us here today. Many are single parents, disabled veterans, people supporting their retirement. The average salary of a full-time horse driver is $100,000 a year because of the advanced horsemanship skills required of the job. This income cannot be replaced by the retraining that the city is offering. We've heard from the drivers in many of the committee hearings how this could drive them into personal bankruptcy. They fear the loss of their homes, their mortgages, their lifestyles, and having to start over at an advanced age when they already have an advanced skill. Our owners have invested millions of dollars in San Antonio. They've also had to incur lots of debt to survive the COVID epidemic. In fact, when COVID was ravaging our city, our country, and our world, the horse carriage industry was one of the only tourism industries that remained open to keep all of our downtown businesses around. The result of shutting down this industry, especially shutting down too soon, will result in bankruptcy, force them to default on local landlords, force them to default on local creditors, and even creditors like the Small Business Administration. The horses. The greatest threat to the horses is this agenda item. Because if our owners have to file bankruptcy, their strongest asset, their most valuable asset are the horses, and they will likely be auctioned by the bankruptcy trustees. They will not end up in sanctuaries, as many people think. And unfortunately, the main buyers of draft horses at auctions are traditional farms, such as Amish farms, where many of these horses were rescued from, other entertainment businesses where they'll have a similar or perhaps harsher lifestyle, or God forbid, the international culinary market. Government should not be the cause of so much financial and personal ruin, driving owners and employees to bankruptcy or to destroy a beloved industry here in San Antonio. It should be uplifting. Now, the articulated justification for these actions that we've heard from the council include, number one, the animal welfare. Now, we've heard from the city's own equine veterinarian that these horses are not being abused in any way. In fact, we've heard from him and others that this is perhaps an ideal or best lifestyle for them. These are draft horses. They've co-evolved. They've been bred to pull. They've co-evolved with humans. They need us as much as we need them. And to put them out, as some would suggest, to a sanctuary would be detrimental to their health, as your own veterinarian has testified to. 2, we've heard about congestion problems downtown. Well, I remind the council that under the current contract when it started, the horse carriages had 8 cab stations. It's where they could unload and drop off passengers. Today, there's 0 because of actions of this council approving construction and building projects. And so all 5 companies, all 25 horse carriages operate out of one loading zone in front of the Hard Rock Cafe, causing congestion. And the owners have suggested numerous locations on the periphery of downtown where they could be relocated to address congestion. But we've not heard any response. And thirdly was emergency vehicles. Well, I remind you that horses' hearings is much superior to our own. These horses are trained when they hear sirens to pull over. They're more agile than even a motor vehicle. And they only operate on 2-lane streets where they can pull over. They do not operate on 1-lane streets. So we have a few options that we would ask for you to sincerely consider today. Number 1 is to reject this proposal, either outright or to work towards a better solution. Number 2 is to convert this to a 5-year wind down, which the owners have testified and showed their financial records to show that that's what they need minimally to avoid bankruptcy, to be able to pay off their creditors and do this gracefully, or at least more gracefully. 3 would be, if you're going to stick with the 3 years, to not restrict them during those 3 years with some kind of taper down, allow them to work unrestricted so they at least have a chance of paying off their debt or avoiding bankruptcy and saving the horses. Or 4, to consider what we've been asking all along as a compromise, is a SeaWorld compromise, which is allow the current horses to continue to work out the remaining of their working life and not add any more horses, and through longer term attrition, allow people to transition, pay off their debts, term out their leases. So what we ask for you today is reasonableness, to consider the humanity, the people that are going to be affected, the people who have mortgages, the people who have debt, our local creditors, our local landlords, all the people who love the horse industry. Understand that horses and humans, again, have co-evolved together, and to reject these extreme views. I mind you that this also sets a precedent. If working animals is something that we don't want in San Antonio, we have to reconsider our rodeo. We have to reconsider mounted patrols, working dogs that our law enforcement utilize, our horse drives, our charreadas, and all the wonderful places that working animals have in our city and in our culture. And so we ask for reasonableness and to consider us in your decision today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Denise Gutierrez-Homer. Ms. Gutierrez-Homer, you'll be followed by Rachel Wolf. Can we get some assistance with AV?
Okay, I also have 2 other individuals giving their time to me. Can you stand up, please?
I need you to say your name, please. I'm sorry? Could you say that again? What's your name, ma'am? And who else? I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please? Okay. You'll have 9 minutes.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Phyllis. I'm Denise Gutierrez-Homer, and I'm here again representing and speaking as a constituent, but also as a partner of Southeast Animal Hospital, to share my concerns about the Council's direction with removing our carriage industry. I'm also Vice President of Infuse SA. That being said, I will let you all know that this council has been misdirected in assuming that the carriages are a nuisance and the horses have been mistreated. You can go ahead and share that, please. Part of our research regarding this issue has been the fact that this council has been misdirected I don't know if you can see it. There it goes. Can you enlarge it, please? That some of you have been led to believe by some members of the ACS board, including District 8's Representative Katie Gerald Coyle, that there is some concerns about animal abuse. You can see by her own statement on her own post, it's directed toward traffic, congestion, etc., with downtown construction, not about abuse. This is coming from a lobbyist who is actually married to an assistant city manager, Jeff Coyle. I don't know how many of you here know that she is married to Jeff Coyle, but having a person that's a lobbyist sitting on our ACS is a concern because there's definitely a connection between her purpose to remove the horse industry and the carriages from San Antonio. You can go to the next page, please. There's more documentation here from Austin and some concerns with her lobbying up in Austin, and there was a lawsuit. Next page, please. And you can verify that she does sit on Manny Pelaez's District 8 position, which also is a concern because he is pushing the EV carriages. But what we're concerned, you can go ahead and stop that. If that'll be found on our Infuse SA site. Our concern is the lobbying to push this forward. The fact that we know from Dr. Espy that there has been no signs of abuse, no documented abuse, but we're still focusing on something that is misled because of what you all want to do with downtown and development. We know that. We read about it. We're aware of what you're all planning. But that should not mean that an industry that's been here since 1865 should be removed. That is our history of San Antonio. Horses built San Antonio, brought families to San Antonio, to settle in San Antonio. They helped build this building for City Hall. They helped build San Fernando. They are Texas. Horses are known as something proud about Texas. And when tourists come here, they don't stand next to a Via bus and take a picture. They stand in line waiting to take a picture with the carriages. Hospitals reach out to them to bring their carriages to the children going through medical services downtown and in the medical center. They don't want to see a Via bus. So the reality is there's something more to this, and more will be coming out through our research. But if you have paid lobbyists working against small businesses who never asked anything of the city council during the COVID shutdowns, but this council is purposely shutting them down because of politics, that is just disgusting. And your record will prove that your legacy on this council in 2024 would be that you are the people who shut down a historical part of San Antonio, a historical part of Texas history. And right now, you have people still offering thanks to people that brought in their horses to help people during Hurricane Helene, because those horses brought and helped people that were stuck when the government wouldn't help them. Our government here is not helping small businesses, and we know it. During COVID, we know it was all fake. We know it now that the mandates were fake. We know that some people on this council received PPP loans. These individuals didn't. They survived. But guess what? They're not going to survive the euthanasia that each of you are going to be doing. You are going to be euthanizing a carriage industry. And for what? Because some of you want to run for mayor? Some of you are working with Weston and the Spurs? And we know that. There's been no sign of abuse, Jalen. None whatsoever, and we have it documented. And you can look away because that's what you're doing, and you can give me the thumbs up. And that's exactly how you treat your constituency. In each of one of you right now, his response is your response, giving me the thumbs up. So I hope you consider the fact that you have the power to make some changes. And the police department knows too, there's no record of abuse, but they'll do whatever you tell them to do. And we know that. So, Mayor, before you leave, think about what you're leaving as your legacy, because we know there's quite a few missteps, including Ready to Work, where you want to send these people. Please understand that your legacy will be something that will go down in history. They fought wars. They were here during World War I, II, and every other incident that we've had in the U.S., and they've survived, but they can't survive this city council as you look at your watch, Jalen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez Homer. Rachel Wolf. Ms. Wolf, you'll be followed by Carter Graham.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Rachel Wolf. I'm with an animal advocacy organization called Voice for Animals. We have staffed an animal help hotline for over 30 years. And in recent years, we've had more and more calls about people calling in with concerns about the horses. This is just an inevitable part of what's happening as more and more people become sensitive to animal issues. Obviously, a transition will benefit the horses. That's obvious. But what's not so apparent is that this can also benefit the businesses. Contrary to what you've heard earlier today, as reported by the New York Times, businesses that have already transitioned into this in other cities have benefited because the number of fairs has remained stable. Please note that pun. They no longer have to worry about the time of when they're able to have their fairs because of the heat. They won't have that issue. And with climate change, that is only going to get worse as the heat increases. They're also not going to be required anymore to bear the financial burden of veterinary care, of feeding and housing the horses. So we ask that you please vote for an immediate transition towards the ban. We no longer live in the 1800s. It's time to move to the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. Carter Graham. Ms. Graham, you'll be followed by João Fernandez.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. I want to first thank you for listening to your community today. My hope is that as each of us speaks this morning, we can all realize just how much of a privilege it is that we have the ability to be here, asking for our voices to be heard. Some do not have this privilege, and that is exactly why I and many others are here. The horse carriage ban has been in debate for quite some time. There have been discussions on the business aspect, public safety, and animal welfare. Something stuck with me the most throughout the numerous discussions, and that is the failure to recognize that the horse carriage industry has victims involved. And where is their voice in this? Because when there is a victim involved, their voice is the only one that matters. Carriage business owners have claimed that they treat their horses well, and some council members have voiced that they believe them. A mistake has been made each time that discussion has occurred, and that is not taking that dialogue one step further and addressing the fact that cruelty doesn't have to always be present in order for something to be still considered exploitation. Horses are sentient individuals who experience reality. They have a will to live. They share a lot more similarities to us than they do differences. When we choose to focus on the differences, even if this happens subconsciously, oppression and exploitation can manifest. Someone presenting differently than us, having a different way of communicating than us, or being more vulnerable than us are not excuses to dismiss and dismantle someone's experience and their rights. No matter how well these horses are claimed to be treated, they are still being viewed as a use, a means for profit, a symbol of entertainment and vanity, not as the sentient individuals that they are. Their differences do not mean that they do not deserve the basic right of being free from exploitation. They are innocent and vulnerable, and as humans with moral responsibility, it is our duty to protect the innocent and the vulnerable, not make a commodity out of them, especially when we have the options that don't involve the exploitation of others, such as electric carriages. The solutions have been presented. It is now time for us to act with compassion and do what is right for the city, the community, and most importantly, the horses. Banning horse carriages, implementing electric carriages, and doing so with urgency is standing on the right side of history. When we are deciding on matters such as this, where there are others involuntarily involved, we mustn't decide based on how does this affect us, but instead, how does this affect them, the ones being used and the ones who cannot speak for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. João Fernandez. Mr. Fernandez, you'll be followed by Roland Downs.
Good morning. Throughout history, societies have clung to traditions, often without questioning their moral foundations. But tradition is not a justification for injustice. If it were, we would still accept practices that deny dignity and freedom to individuals based on arbitrary distinctions. We abandon some of those practices because we recognize they conflicted with fundamental principles of justice. The use of horse-drawn carriages is one such tradition that must be abolished. For too long, we have exploited horses, treating them as tools of labor or entertainment, rather than recognizing them as sentient beings. Horses are not objects. Their value does not depend on their utility to us. They are subjects of their own lives. Like us, they are some bodies, not some things. Breeding them into existence and forcing them into servitude strips away their autonomy and reduces them to mere commodities. Continuing this practice sends a harmful message that tradition takes precedence over justice, but progress demands that we question and reject traditions rooted in exploitation. To allow this practice to persist is to ignore the moral obligation we have to treat all sentient beings with respect and fairness. San Antonio has an opportunity to lead, not by preserving an outdated and exploitative tradition, but by affirming the values of compassion and justice. The time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Roland Downs. Mr. Downs, you'll be followed by Ileana Poor.
Hi, how's everybody doing? So I just have a few things to bring up. That's like consistently the conversation always goes on about what is good for and bad for humans, but it's never really brought up around what is actually going on to the individuals, the victims of the choices of this industry. The first two people who were up here talking were threatening to send them to be killed if y'all voted for banning this in the future. That's just a idle threat. There's plenty of sanctuaries that would take them to safely keep them for the rest of their lives doing what they want to do in their own natural environments. The abuse factor keeps being brought up. The abuse is the exploitation and the enslavement of these individuals. That is happening all the time, always. They didn't help us build the United States. They didn't help us build this building. They were forced to. And we need to remember that they were forced into every situation that humans have been involved in with them. So we need to remember that when we're deciding what is going to happen with an industry that makes profit above all else over their life and experience. We need to focus on the victims that are going to be implemented by whatever decision y'all decide and what is going to be happening for them, because those idle threats that they're just throwing around are not going to happen if we who are sticking up for justice for them are allowed on our end to take care of them as well. So please don't play into any of those words. That's just nonsensical threats and fear-mongering. These animals need help right now, but if 3 years is the best that we can figure out to do, then that would be ideal to end this exploitative, corrupt industry that doesn't make the city better. It just holds it back to hundreds of years ago when exploitation was still wrong, but even less talked about. So now let's address these problems and change for the future. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Downs. Ileana Poor. Ms. Poor, you'll be followed by Tyler Porisky.
Good morning, everyone. Let's take a moment. Let's take a moment to ask ourselves, what kind of city do we want San Antonio to be? A city stuck in the past, clinging to outdated practices, or one that leads with compassion, progress, and innovation? Today, we're here to discuss horse-drawn carriages, a practice many consider charming. But beneath that veneer lies a troubling reality, one that we must confront to align with our city. Some argue that draft horses are built for this kind of work, but let's be clear, strength does not make immune to suffering. Draft horses were bred for controlled, steady labor in fields, not to be pulled through San Antonio's chaotic streets. These horses endure extreme conditions, pulling carriages on blistering asphalt with temperatures exceeding 135 degrees. Their joints and hooves deteriorate from working on hard pavement, and the urban environment is a source of chaotic stress with loud traffic, unpredictable movements, and poor air quality that damages their sensitive respiratory system. Even routine veterinary checks don't tell the full story. Horses are prey animals. They instinctively hide pain, meaning health issues often go unnoticed until they are severe. Now let's talk economics. Operators often claim that they can't afford transitioning away from horse-drawn carriages, but here's the reality. Transitioning to electric carriages would actually benefit them. It would save them money because horses are expensive. They require constant care, vet visits, food, water, housing, breaks. When a horse gets sick or injured, those costs skyrocket. Electric carriers, on the other hand, don't need food or water or veterinary care or even housing, which I don't know if you know, but they are housed under I-37 and East Houston Street. It's very loud there. For the horse, the passengers, and the surrounding community. Removing horses from the equation eliminates this risk entirely. In fact, cities have transitioned to electric carriages, like Montreal and Salt Lake City, have reported increased tourism in their revenue. Visitors are drawn to the novelty, eco-friendly rides, which fit perfectly with the rising demand for sustainable tourism. By switching to electric carriages, operators can reduce costs while maintaining, if not increasing, their profits. Change doesn't have to happen overnight. This is a practical 3-year plan. Okay, let me skip to the end. Let me ask you one question. Where do we stand? Despite the clear alternatives, would you want profit over compassion? Imagine San Antonio, quiet, clean, electric carriages, no animal suffering, no more paid for cruelty. Let's try thinking forward.
Thank you, Ms. Poore. Tyler Periski.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be telling you guys from my perspective as a rideshare driver. Everyone knows that downtown, can get congested. And when the operators are down there, sometimes they're even trying to pass each other. I've taken pictures and have shared them with the bank carriage's social media. Excuse me. I want to tell you guys a story. One evening, I pulled over downtown to pick up a passenger. I parked briefly in a gap near the carriages, but despite there being no signage reserving the space, I was met with hostility from the operators. They came up to me, recording me, telling me I can't park here, I need to go. I was in the way. I was in the way in my car that can do 100+ miles per hour. Now these carriages are driving around 1 mile per hour, literally causing traffic jams. Some argue that the banning of horse-drawn carriages would harm and hurt the economy, but holding onto an industry that's already failing does not create stability. It delays progress, and as others claim, the practice is part of San Antonio's identity, but tradition should not outweigh public safety, traffic efficiency, and fiscal responsibility. Finally, we do need to consider the welfare of the horses. Now, the other night, I was driving some passengers, and there was an operator who brought a horse right on my tail end of my car. I have stood behind my car and felt the exhaust hitting my leg. That means that horse was getting a face full of exhaust. I got out of my car because it was a standstill traffic. I asked the operator, hey, do you mind backing it up so your horse can get some fresh air? He just looked at me like I was a crazy person. These are the operators. San Antonio is a city that honors its history, but we also need to embrace progress. Retiring horse-drawn carriages would reduce traffic congestion, prevent unnecessary conflicts, and represent a step forward in our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Persky. Emily Doherty. Emily Doherty. Ms. Doherty, be followed by Joe Strauss, Jr.
Hi, Council, Mayor, thank you for having us, staff. I left my notes with the baby, I'm sorry. He's back there. I guess I want to start out, I would like to say I am a homeowner in District 10. I also own a property in District 2. I was a resident there for 7 years. In addition, I have been a carriage operator since 2016. I would like to address some of the things that Councilman Pelias brought up in our October 31st meeting. He said that he is very proud of our San Antonio tourism brand. I also am very proud of our brand. He said a horse dying or falling down in the street would be detrimental to this brand that we have. While I agree, I also would like to say that that has never happened here. There is zero documentation of that, and that is because we know how to take care of our horses, we know how to drive our horses, and we understand the difficulties and any sort of issues that may arise due to traffic or something else. What I don't agree with is the fact that shootings in downtown, shootings of tourists, shootings of fiesta goers, that has happened this year in 2024. Someone was beaten to death in front of the Grand Hyatt. That damages our tourism brand. Horse carriages do not damage our tourism brand. In addition, you are so proud of the fact of how fast we did an airport deal, how fast we did Project Marble, how fast we did the baseball stadium, and yet we're still arguing about horse carriages. We're arguing because you are voting to close small businesses, minority-owned small businesses, putting 81 people out of jobs that provide a living wage. That's why we're arguing about this. That's why this matters. In addition, if we talk about traffic, we have traffic problems because there's lack of planning. I've been attending meetings since 2016 when we started talking about the Alamo renovations, closing Alamo Street. I've been asking questions about what's the traffic flow, what are the plans. They did a traffic study Tuesday through Thursday in September or October. Do you know how much traffic there is downtown during those days? Zero. There's no traffic. Why didn't you do a traffic study when it mattered? Lack of planning is the reason we have traffic problems. We don't have traffic problems because of horse carriages. Y'all have a choice today. You can save our carriages. You can save our jobs. Make us proud of this city, not want to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Joe Strauss, Jr. Mr. Strauss, you'll be followed by Karen Dawn.
Mayor Nierenberg, council members, my name is Joe Strauss, Jr. You're probably the oldest junior you've ever met. I'll be 98 years old next month. I'm here to talk about this horse carriage issue. And why? I don't have any interest in them at all. I have a good friend that does, Ron White, back there. Ron, where are you? Good friend of mine, and his family has been in this business for 44 years here in San Antonio, 3 generations of them. They've never had any problems, no citations, no penalties, no tickets for violations of any kind. And here we are talking about something that's so insignificant when you compare it to what you all are charged to do now, the new airport, home for the Spurs, baseball, you name it, the public works and so forth. And why we're here talking about this, I still don't know. It's just an injustice that I wanted to speak up about. My family wants to know why I'm doing this, and that's just because it's an injustice, in my opinion. We've been involved in a number of different things in San Antonio, not similar to this, but take the city wanted to tear down the Majestic and Empire theaters. My wife took it upon herself to raise the money privately, and look what happened with that. And also my brother, after Hemisphere, he took it on himself to find a way to reutilized the Riverwalk and brought in tourism there. Took him 2 years to get the private owners there to turn their businesses around and face the river. Those are the kind of things that I think that everybody here ought to be doing. And here we are, these horses, Ron and his family, they have 15 of these gentle giant horses. They keep them out on a farm. I've had some horses out on that same farm. And they use 5 of them at a time, and they rotate them so that they don't get overused. When they go out there, they get their shoes pulled off, their hooves trimmed, put back on the shoes, and veterinarians look at them and so forth. They're very well cared for. And these carriages bring nothing but joy to this city. You take kids that have birthday parties and use these things. And you got visitors that come to San Antonio, and they love to see the things that make San Antonio so unique for riding in these carriages. And instead of eliminating them, you probably ought to be finding ways to reuse them more. I think when you get the Battle of Flowers Parade, that you all ought to be riding in these carriages to greet your supporters out there from these carriages rather than from an old automobile.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Karen Dawn. All right, Mark White. Mr. White, you'll be followed by Ron White. Y'all are going to go separately, I take it?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Mark White, and I'm a 2-time Grammy Award-winning musician and proud owner of Legacy Home Improvements, one of San Antonio's premier roofing companies. In just a few days, we'll celebrate 25 years in business here in San Antonio. I'm not an employee of a carriage company, but I do have a personal connection to the issue. I'm the grandson of Lucille White, who started Lone Star Carriage Company in 1981 when I was 3 years old, who inspired me to start my own business. So today I'm here as a San Antonio business owner, deeply concerned about the precedent that this proposal sets. What's troubling is the process that led up to today's meeting. The city scheduled a Halloween special session to discuss the phase-out timelines for horse-drawn carriages, and that meeting was held the same day that the comprehensive study we just saw again, that the results of that were presented. How can you already call a special session about possible timelines for phase-out on the same day that the study's findings were finally being presented? The study didn't support the reasons for the ban with any substantive facts, but the study was meant to guide your decision. So how do you already have the meeting scheduled for the phase-out when you haven't even seen the proposal that's supposed to help guide your decision? And I'm not an attorney, but this proposal appears to conflict with Texas state law. The Texas Transportation Code 542.003 explicitly recognizes horse-drawn carriages as vehicles, granting them the same rights as motor vehicles on public roadways. Along with that, House Bill 2127, enacted in 2023, prohibits local governments from enacting ordinances that conflict with and that are more strict than state law, including areas like transportation. So if there's no state ban, there can't be a local ban. If enacted, this ban could directly conflict with the state law, placing the city of San Antonio in legal jeopardy at the expense of the San Antonio taxpayers that you represent. So as an owner of a San Antonio business, I'm deeply alarmed by the council's arbitrary power of local industries. What's to stop the council from targeting another lawful industry next year based on incomplete data, or worse, an online poll? Every San Antonio business owner should be frightened by this precedent. Shutting down a regulated, family-owned industry without concrete evidence is not only unjust, but it's reckless. So council members, before you vote, ask yourselves, when you decided to run for city council, was it to celebrate and participate job creation programs with happy ceremonies with oversized scissors and red ribbons, or was it to chomp at the bit to kill family-owned businesses without evidence based on an online forum?
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Ron White. You're ceding your time, sir, to Rose Hill? Okay, I'll call you up, Rose, when your name comes up. It says Marin Smith. I believe that's Mariah Smith. Okay. Miss. Chance Moreno? Okay, and who else? Okay. No, they don't. As long as they're here, you can come up, Ms. Smith, you'll have 9 minutes.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. My name is Mariah Smith, as many of you know, for I've been the lead activist spearheading this initiative for a ban on horse-drawn carriages. This is no doubt one of the most passionate issues in our city, and public input always proves this. I think it speaks volumes that the city-created survey broke record-level participation with more than 47,000 responses. This was no doubt a widely taken survey because this was something not only open to residents, but tourists got the chance to participate in as well. And after seeing the survey results, the public opinion is clear on this. It has been shown out of the 4 options, only one gained a majority of the vote, and that is a transition away from horse-drawn carriages. Public input is showing you all that this is the way we need to go. And just like every other poll out there, we continually see the same result over and over again, which is that a majority of people are in favor of transitioning away from the way we've always done things. And this isn't just any ordinary ban. This is a very well thought out and detailed transition plan that makes San Antonio stand out from all the other dozens of cities that have already issued horse carriage bans. So I want to thank city staff and all their efforts they put into creating this. And if we pass this, it gives San Antonio the opportunity to lead the nation and really set an example for other cities on how to implement a ban and properly care and guide carriage operators in their next steps forward. So many people are coming to a consensus on this from many different angles and not just animal welfare. And I must reiterate once again that this is a citizen-led movement, and this has been citizen-led from the very start. The carriage operators and many others keep trying to portray anyone calling for a ban as crazy, illogical animal rights activists and attempt to discredit the very thing we all know that needs to be done. Regardless of the stance on welfare, it is clear the people have come to a collective agreement that horses no longer belong on modern-day San Antonio streets. There was a time and place when horse carriages played a vital role in society and transportation, but since then we've evolved significantly. And we keep hearing, we're going to get rid of tradition and culture, but that's not true because tradition and the San Antonio experience people speak of isn't dying because tradition isn't the horse itself. It's the ride, it's how you treat people, it's the way in which you give the tour, it's the surrounding downtown historic buildings and the connection you develop with people, which can all be done without a distressed horse. And it's important to note that just because something is a tradition and even a business doesn't mean it's right. And as a young Black woman, I will stand up here today and tell you that I can think of a couple examples in the past that were once tradition that were extremely immoral and unacceptable. Refusing to change because tradition is very closed-minded. As we grow as individuals and as a city, it's our responsibility to evolve and adapt and reassess old traditions and create new ones that are principled and compassionate and that better reflect the values and goals of San Antonio. This concept of tradition and culture with the carriages fails to account for all of these things, as well as the massive urbanization and technological advancement San Antonio is undergoing. And as the 7th largest city in the nation with heavy traffic and nonstop construction, public safety concerns and horse spooking conditions will only continue to increase. These carriages are a fatal accident waiting to happen and are dangerous for all parties involved, the horse itself, the people riding the carriage driver, and the vehicle driver and all the passengers alongside. As passionately as I am on welfare, you're not going to hear me really make this the basis of my speech because apparently I'm not an equine expert, so I can't. So I will remind you all, 3 months ago, a coalition of more than 100 Texas veterinarians sent you all a letter listing the adverse health effects horses from this industry suffer from. And just want to highlight, these are veterinarians not paid for by the city. There's no conflict of interest involved in them. It's very disappointing to see the carriage industry and its operators continuing to spread lies and fear tactics to keep their profits circulating. This for-profit industry is just that, because the same people that claim to care and love their animals and call them family have also threatened to slaughter all their beloved family members if a ban were to pass, even when we have rescues eager and able to take these horses in. More information was also just said by this gentleman, Joe Strauss, who also has ties with Rotema Park and was a part owner of that, and said there's no violations. When SAPD clearly presented to us in past meetings, they have 100 citations for violations. Anybody that goes downtown has seen for themselves how every corner you turn, there's almost a potential accident. There's horses trying to run red lights, congestion building up from the carriages, via bus drivers getting frustrated, horses lagging and dragging themselves, foaming at the mouth, and exhibiting all clear signs deeming an equine unfit for use, which we have the evidence of online. The carriage people say that the evidence we have is perfectly timed, but that's not true. There's no such thing. The pictures and videos are what they are because it's what's happening. So the option is clear. It's time for San Antonio to do the right thing. We're already behind on this, and this is long overdue, and it's something the community has been very vocal in wanting from you guys for a very long time. The fact is that horse-drawn carriages are causing more harm than good and are no longer aligned with the progressing needs of San Antonio. It's 2024, not 1864. It's time we finally put it into this practice and leave the horse carriages to the historic days and make space for more modern and innovative practices to emerge. Thank you, and thank you guys for what you do, and thank you for finally bringing this up. It's long overdue, and I hope we can get this done. I did want to mention, it's kind of off script, but you guys do have the Brady Hunter Foundation at your disposal. Jalen and you guys should be aware of, so just get in contact with them. They're willing to help out with the electric carriages financially. They have the plans. Stuff is already getting into motion, so if electric carriage is something you guys would like to do, they're most definitely there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Kenneth Spradley. Kenneth Spradley. Mr. Spradley, you'll be followed by Lacey Jessamine. One second. I called Lacey Jessamine after. Okay, you'll be next. Ms. Newman, you're giving your minutes to Mr. Spradley? Okay, you'll have 6 minutes, Mr. Spradley.
Good morning, council members. I stand before you today in yet another attempt to reach an understanding between your offices and the carriage companies that your agendas have seemed quite concerned with dismantling. My coworkers have made numerous emotional pleas in an attempt to invoke your compassion to no avail. With this in mind, I will attempt to reach your understanding through a more logical response. Before I begin, a bit of context of who I am. I'm a 27-year-old United States Marine Corps veteran. I was honorably discharged from active duty in July of 2020 after serving 4 years in the infantry unit of 1-5. Today, I am self-enrolled at Texas A&M University San Antonio, and I'm registered at 100% military disability. Since then, I have been employed with Bluebonnet and Lollipop Carriages as they have been willing to work with both my disabilities as well as my scholastic schedules. Let us begin with the city-issued survey that received a response rate of approximately 50,000 people. The numbers for this particular survey, assuming that they were accurately charted with an acceptable margin of error, does not fully encompass the opinion of the entirety of San Antonio. The full population of San Antonio, according to the World Population Review, is 1,513,974 people. They arrived at this projection through the latest United States Census that was released in May earlier this year. With these numbers in mind, the survey successfully reached 3% of the population of San Antonio. With this percentage in mind, the people who are supportive of closing the carriage companies therefore reach an even lower percentage. Another issue that should be addressed, that is, the council has yet to provide an acceptable professional opinion that supports their claims that the industry itself is detrimental to our horses. You have blatantly disregarded our experts in the field, whether they be veterinarians, farriers, animal control agencies, or veterinary technicians, but have not been able to provide any expert who is willing to supply the answer that the majority of the council desires to hear. The next issue is the ideals that the council holds authority over the horses that each company owns. The idea that any kind of governmental agency holds the power of asset forfeiture of any kind of privately owned company is directly disregarding the ideals we hold as Americans in a free market society. This is not a democratic practice. This is not a common American stratagem, regardless of agendas. The idea that government can seize any or all assets of that are privately owned is a totalitarian and communistic approach. This has never been our way, and we should not begin that way of thinking now. Before anyone should object to this claim that I am making, I would like to remind the audience, as well as the council, that just last month, on record, the council made inquiries and suggested actions on who would house our horses other than the proper owners, and what could be done to secure them. This record is open for all to see, as all these meetings are open for all public access. The next issue is that the oppositional views being barred from comment. In the last council meeting, those with the council's preferred viewpoint were addressed and openly communicated with on their views. The last meeting that happened last month was supposed to be a meeting in which the city council addressed the public, but the public were not permitted to address the council. Yet this only seemed to apply to any individual that disagreed with the council's actions or deliberations. My next issue is more of a question on what is to become of San Antonio's working animal climate should the dismissal of carriages come to pass. Will all working animals then be barred from San Antonio? Will the San Antonio Mounted Patrol be disbanded? Will the rodeo not be allowed to enter San Antonio? Will service animals for people not be permitted to do their jobs? How far will this city council allow the people with no professional input go in regulating the population? Will we no longer be allowed to possess pets? Will San Antonio go and seize the land of ranch owners as well as their animals they require to sustain themselves and their families? Again, I ask, how far will this go? I want to thank you for your time to address the council on this sensitive matter, and I pray that you find a solution that is not harmful to this industry or the population of San Antonio or her history. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spradley. Lacey, Jessamine? Again, folks, I'm asking you to please limit reactions so people can hear their next name called, so we can move forward and make sure everybody gets to be heard. Lacey, Jessamine, you'll be followed by Rose Hill.
Hello, my name is Lacey. I'm with Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation, a nonprofit that's been serving San Antonio for nearly 50 years. This statement is on our behalf. Now the decision has already been made to make sure this is the right thing for the horses who have worked hard toting tourists and who have worked hard in downtown San Antonio. Can there be any good reason to continue delaying taking action? These horses have put in their time. They have done enough, and they have more than paid their ways. Let us not wait to reward them. Let us look for a way to prove that there are times that compassion is more important than money. Every act of kindness that we commit is one that makes the world a better place. Now that the decision has already been made to cease the use of them, surely we can agree not to wait years, but to act now and give these noble animals the relief they deserve. Let us think of them, the horses who never asked to do this job, who carried it out with dignity and silence, and they worked long and hard enough. Please, in the interest of kindness to all animals, I encourage you to act now on their behalf and end this practice sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jessamine. Rose Hill. Ms. Hill, you'll be followed by Devin Vanneman. And you'll have 6 minutes, Rose.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council, and my councilman, Jalen Key Rodriguez. My name is Rose Hill. I'm a 35-year community leader in District 2, and I'm also a previous small owner business of a business that I had, construction. I'm here today to support these 5 local horse and carriage industry. Why? Because there's a lot of miscommunication. We talk about eliminating these animals. They have been, first of all, I want to say today, I ask you to vote no. Second of all, I ask you, Jalen, to consider the negotiations that have been put before you. This is going to affect families, put these people in bankrupt, and possibly do this at the most horrible time, at Christmas time. We could have waited till January, February, but we chose to do it at Christmas time, leaving these people to believe, will they have a job tomorrow, which is very sad. Second of all, we talk about eliminating animals, and I've heard people here talking that the animals are being abused. What about the Bexar County horses that are being worked? What about our animals for SAPD? What about the rodeo that works 2 weeks straight? So we have to take all that into consideration. I want to also acknowledge the fact that there is no abuse. And there's 2 things that I ask you, Jalen, to consider. Negotiations that are put forth by these people asking you. And second of all, I ask you, have you done your research? Have you really gone down there, Jalen, to look at the horses for yourself to say, as a councilman, yes, there is abuse. Yes, this is why I'm doing this. And then I would wholeheartedly believe you, Sam. I hope that you, as our leader of District 2, will show forth some compassion today for these people. Be the leader that we vote, for those who voted for you in District 2.
Ms. Hill, you're here to address the whole council. Thank you.
So I think, again, a negotiation, each of you within your district say, we talk about small businesses. We're always promoting that as small businesses here. But today I ask each and every one of you deep down, as you consider your decision today, tell yourselves how you tell your people in each of your districts that you support small businesses, because this is what it's about. Today it's about small business. This is a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big deal because small businesses are what makes San Antonio grow, economic development. We're always talking about economic development. We're talking about bringing monies. This horse industry, it falls in District 2. And I can tell you that we got to practice, ladies and gentlemen, what we preach. Each one of you were voted in because of small businesses. Each and every one of you have compassion, understand, and think about the decisions you're going to make today, how it's going to affect the lives of people. Now, some of you, these people are not in your district, but if it was in your district, would you want this to happen? I don't think so. Mr. Mayor, this is your last term. I ask you and all the city council to wholeheartedly think about what y'all are going to do today. And if we can't decide on not voting for it today, or no, yes or no, please think about the negotiations that are being put forth from you. They didn't ask any money from you during the pandemic. They stood on their own 2 legs. They worked hard. These people work hard for a day's work. And those horses are working horses. They're not being abused. They're not being, a lot of things that are being said about them. I would just want to tell you, I want to commend Terry Castillo and Mark White for being out there and showing us that what true leadership is, because they know that if that was happening in their district, they know what it is. And I can tell you that basically small businesses are important. They're important to the history of San Antonio. And today, it's a sad day that I have to come before you to ask and plead with you to consider not to do this. Hoy es un día muy triste en San Antonio para que nosotros podamos venir aquí y pedirles a cada uno de ustedes que no hagan esto. No hagan esto, no es justo para esta gente que tiene familias, especialmente en Navidad. This is Christmas time. This is a time of joy. Maybe each one of us and a lot of other people here will say it's joy, but what about those people? They don't know what tomorrow may bring. Let's not do this, San Antonio. Let's not let each and every one of you, the elections are coming up, mayors, people who are running for mayors, I hope that you can stand before you when you go before elections and you can say, this is not the legacy I left, but this is something that I'm here willing to do, is to negotiate today. So please, do not do this, City of San Antonio. Do not do this to these people, because these people are y'all work for us. We don't work for you. Please don't do this to the people of San Antonio, and don't do that to these hard-working families that work every single day with those horses. They bring passion and love to those animals. They do not abuse them. Let's stop the falsification, and let's be honest. Let's do the research, and let's negotiate.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Devin Vanneman. Ms. Vanneman, you'll be followed by Grace Rose Gonzalez.
Good morning. My name is Devin. I've been a carriage driver in downtown San Antonio for over 8.5 years now. I beg of you not to take our jobs away from us. I beg of you to see what will happen to all these small businesses if you do this. Not just my family, but countless of families. The families that fix our wheels, the families that we buy our hay and our feed from. The list goes on and on. We love our horses, and so do the people that come to visit this beautiful historical city. I have 5 beautiful children and a new grandbaby that this job helps me support them. Please, again, I beg of you not to do this to us, our families, or our horses. Dear Lord, I pray that you open the minds and the hearts of the city council members sitting here today. I pray that you hear what we are saying, and I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Vanneman. Grace Rose Gonzalez. Lisa Barnes. Okay, anybody else? All right, Ms. Gonzalez, you'll have 6 minutes.
Hello. I'm Grace Rose Gonzalez, an appointee on the SWIMBY for Bexar County Precinct 4. I've also served on SBAC for the city for small business and Hispanic Chamber Board of Directors for small business. And so I have a passion for small business, being a small business owner. So let's talk about the lack of joy these days. The pressure from the macro and the micro are building. The dismantling of small business and affirmative action plans, a mantra of the incoming leadership, while Project 2025 looms. We are facing an AI tsunami that is changing the employment landscape with the displacement of thousands of workers. Because mounting daily pressures, we now have support animals, such as Councilwoman Carr's dog, Hera. That is with her daily to give her comfort and joy. These grand horses are in fact support animals for their owners, working alongside them every day. Horses are known for their healing abilities, now invited to hospitals and nursing homes for comfort for the sick and those in hospice, and they're working. What would you do, Councilwoman, if you were told Hera needed to be replaced with a stuffed animal because people believed Hera is abused by going to work with you? As Dr. Espy testified, there is no horse abuse whatsoever. Espy also said the CCR was uninformed and irresponsible, and yet the abuse falsehoods continued as a narrative. This vote will kill 5 SMWBE LGBTQ carriage companies and replace them with a driverless, horseless alternative. As Councilman Carr, I would be grateful that no one is taking Hero away and rehoming him, because animal rights advocates say that life in a pouch is abusive. The logistics of the plans on how that need to be discussed have been dismissed because there have been no real conversations with the businesses. And as somebody who has served on the Port Authority, the Hispanic Chamber, a zoning commissioner, and chair of the Cultural Arts Board, the only way that you can come to good decision-making is by working together. And as of today, these businesses have not been brought to a table to meet with any of you council people in a meaningful way. To say economic development and SAPD worked with them, well, I will tell you as somebody who worked on the Brackenridge Park, the 2017 bond on the committee, and we were told that the Parks Department had umpteen meetings with us, and we had them over at the Whitty, and we weren't even given a microphone to say what we thought, and you had hundreds of people there that attended over 7 to 10 months. This is a travesty when we talk about collaboration and communication. And I hope all of you will consider tabling this item so that you can have real collaboration. These horses are not abused. These horses are, in fact, support animals. They've all been already rehomed one time, and they have come to these carriage businesses for sanctuary, and they enjoy their work. Those are Pershons and Clydesdales that at the world's record, 59,000 pounds that one Clydesdale can pull. You don't tell me that this is abusive to pull a tiny little cage with 3 people in it? So get your facts straight and start acting as leadership with leadership goals of sitting down with these people and actually working this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Kathy Stevens. All right. Kathy Stevens. Christopher Stevens? Oh. You're Kathy Stevens? Christopher Stevens? You're giving your 3 minutes to Kathy? Okay. Anybody else? All right. You'll have 6 minutes, Ms. Stevens.
Can I also get somebody for audio, visual?
Yes, ma'am. And you'll be followed, Ms. Stevens, by Jack Finger.
Hello, my name is Kathy Stevens. We come here today, of course, about the CCR for the horse-drawn carriages. I work for Bluebonnet and Lollipop Carriages. Been an operator in San Antonio since 2008. I've came before council many times discussing changes and compromises that can be made to the horse-drawn carriage industry's ordinances. And all of those times previous to this occasion, compromise has been done. We have had discussions. There has been talks until this time. There's been one driven plan, and that is to essentially ban the horse-drawn carriages in San Antonio. You talk about in the CCR how there will be compromises. There are other locations that can be looked at or changes that can be made. At no point has that ever happened with the horse-drawn carriage industry. The people that have came to spoke with us have spoken on one driven plan by council and the Transportation Advisory Board. Even said that they put recommendations in. Those recommendations were never looked at by council. In your last meeting on October 31st, your proposal was brought to you guys when many of you asked for questions to be answered by these departments in your facility to come back and make a presentation on those. Where's that presentation? Where are those answers? You talk about sanctuaries that our horses can go to. Are those sanctuaries going to pay off our debts to take our animals? Who's going to pay off the debts? These horses are our assets to our company. Where is that money coming from? Because these horses, you're right, do cost a lot of money. They are in a sanctuary with us. We are paying for that upcare. We are paying for that upkeep. Who's going to pay for that? Do you think because they're in a field that care is no longer required? Who is going to pay for those things? We talk about that the horses can go be euthanized and be put down. That's because bankruptcy court will come over and take our assets, because our largest assets to our company are our horses. And they will be sold at your highest bidder. Do you know who the highest bidder for a draft horse is? The meat markets. Because a draft horse weighs on average between 1,600 pounds to over 2,000 pounds. My largest horse is 2,380 pounds. You know how much money he'd make on the meat market? Quite a bit. That is what we're saying. We're not saying we're going to go put these horses down. Exploitation is not there. I drive a 2,020-pound draft horse. There's not a darn thing I can do to do to that horse to get him to do something he's not willing to do. I ask him, and he obliges. My horse enjoys every part of walking and getting that exercise. Until you come experience that, you can never understand what we do on a daily basis. E-carriages, you can go ahead and cue that. E-carriages have been brought up on many occasions. We've been told that permits will be transferred out of that. However, in the last meeting, the mayor also said that there was a congestion problem, and he didn't understand why e-carriages were being brought up right now. When there's a congestion problem, that this is what we're addressing. So why are we looking at that? However, we have e-carriages operating in downtown right now without permits. This has been brought to the city's attention many times, and he's still operating for money, for passengers taking rides. I took a ride myself and paid him for it, but it's been overlooked. It's happening on a nightly basis in downtown San Antonio, where this gentleman is operating without permits, but yet we're standing here when we're legally operating through the city council. We do have debt. We are trying to negotiate in ways to pay this off. However, we need time. And it seems to be that that's overlooked, and it just said, well, you guys should have already been doing this. This has been over time. We do have overhead. We do have leases. Those leases just don't go away because the city council said so. Those loans don't go away just because the city council said so. That's what us as owners are looking at to try to say we need time. So if this will not be tabled or relooked at to be a new vision, then we're asking for more time. We have asked that you guys look at different areas that we can operate, that aren't in the middle of Hard Rock Cafe, in the middle of the majestic traffic, in the middle of the congestion that has been diverted from the Alamo Street. But where is that compromise? Where is the table? I myself wrote up a whole plan, marked on maps, and it has been no response. We've submitted it to all the right departments and have gotten nothing in return. Isn't that the job of this council? Isn't that the job of the council to look at small businesses, look at these proposals and come back and say, this is what we can do? There wasn't even a no. It was just nothing. So how is council doing the proper job in its departments if we're not even getting those smallest, minute little answers? So I'm asking you to look at what has happened and look at your process and actually see if you're checking the boxes that you're supposed to be following these rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Jack Finger. All right, Carlos Trevino.
Quick comment. If you make your way downtown in a Saturday night, Friday night, whichever it is, and you walk those streets, everybody's sharing those streets. The lowrider life comes out, big music, exhaust everywhere. Don't be fooled when they say there's no abuse, because that's abusive right there. Just subjecting them to that. There's different forms of abuse, as we all know, psychological abuse. I'm sure something's going on with each and every of those horses' lungs. They have to ingest that smoke, all of that crap. Don't fall for that. And I just want to make a quick comment about them dragging down the rodeo and all of that stuff. Yeah, you're right. You're thinking critically now. You're not thinking about just yourself, right? Drag them down, you know. Animal abuse should be abolished. Animal slavery should be abolished. That's exactly what it is. You hear these people taking the page out of the slave master book, saying they were bred for this. We've been doing this for a long time. That is not a justification. That's all fallacies. That's all unethical. So we ask you here to do the right thing, vote for the right thing. We've done it. We've done our work. I've personally been arrested for speaking up against these. They say they are good people. These people are so horrible. I've spoken to like a lot of them, and I got footage of even horse carriages backing up into cars. They are so unaware. They are always on their phone. They don't follow basic laws. Supposedly, horse carriages are just like vehicles. You see these horses, they're full of ornaments, full of Christmas lights. What is that? Can we do that to our personal cars? Of course not. Of course we can't do that thing. Okay, well, cry about it. Cry some more, because these are animals, and they have feelings just like you, just like your dogs, all right? So cry more if you want, but it's going to happen whether they do it here now, today, whether you get those 3 extra years. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So thank you for letting us speak about this, and yeah, we'll see y'all out there. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. All right. That is everyone who signed up to speak on item 3. Appreciate y'all's observance of our rules so everybody could get their voices heard. We'll go now into council discussion. Before we do, let me have a motion on item 3.
Move to approve.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of item 3. We'll go into council discussion now. I will use the queue, so please queue up if you'd like to speak on this item. Councilmember Courage.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been a very challenging situation brought before this council, and I think this is the kind of issue that the council should address when it's brought forward to us. You know, I noticed the first few presentations over the last year or so that was directed towards the horses was saying that there was a lot of abuse going on for horses. As a matter of fact, the last speaker said, oh, he has pictures or videos. You know, I've been looking at this issue for, I guess, almost a year. No one sent me any pictures or videos to help me understand what they say they see going on out there. So I have to go by what I hear and what I've seen for myself. I've been out to watch the carriages in action. I'll have to say I've been as annoyed as probably anybody else riding behind one of the carriages. But I also went out to the barns and saw the animals and how they're treated. You know, and it seems like the argument's been changing from abuse to exploitation. I heard that word used a lot today, exploitation. Well, does the city of San Antonio exploit the animals at the zoo? Are we going to shut that down?
All right, folks, we're having a council discussion now,
Does a private company like SeaWorld exploit animals at their facility?
All right, Councilmember Courage, I'm going to ask you to hold up for a second. This is a council discussion. The discussion is among the council and the staff. I'm asking everyone in the gallery to please keep their comments to themselves and keep the volume down so we can resume. If not, I will recess the meeting.
I was a military dog handler in the Air Force. Do our military dogs and canine units by police being exploited? I understand you may want to say yes, but these are facts of lives that have a value to our society that the majority of people don't necessarily want to have disappear. But there are groups that do. We have to make those kinds of decisions. But abuse was one of the big issues. Another big issue is traffic congestion. And like I said, I've been behind the carriages. I know they slow traffic down. I get annoyed because I want to go home after I've seen something downtown. But, you know, they're desired by tourists. And I've been to other cities and I've ridden in horse-drawn carriages. I think it's a valuable experience, and a lot of other people do too. But when we talk about congestion, yes, they may slow us down, but have any of you been behind one of the new hop-on buses? Those big buses that are driving around the city, showing people a city with 10 or 20 or 30 people inside? They cause congestion too. Are we going to say their congestion should stop? But tourists like those. And then, you know, there was the argument about living in the past, you know, versus the 21st century. You know, we have the Alamo, we have the Missions, we have the Cenotaph, we have La Villita, we have San Fernando Cathedral, we have Brackenridge Park, we have San Pedro Springs. That's the past of San Antonio. We have the Conservation Society, who has fought for years to help maintain that past that is San Antonio and that is Texas. Now, certainly, we also need to look to the future. So you can take Brooks Air Force Base from 20 years ago and look at Brooks City Base today. And you can look at Kelly Air Force Base from 20 years ago, but you can look at Port SA today. But those were caused by evolution, not dissolution. And that's what we can think about, an evolution of maybe the horse-drawn carriage operations, how they could evolve, but not dissolve. You know, there's been some information about House Bill 2127 from 2023. And the Texas legislature passed the Regulatory Consistency Act, HB 2127. This law prohibits cities from enacting policies that ban businesses already operating within the law. It was written to stop the kind of action that's being proposed today. And you know, the current change presented in this issue right now, in this change in the code, is the use of horses with horse-drawn carriages in San Antonio will cease to operate on January 1st, 2028. If that isn't exactly what this bill was laid out to stop, I don't understand what it isn't supposed to stop. So for all of those observations of mine, I'm very reluctant to close a business that's operating illegally, that meets the needs of a lot of people in the city, tourists and residents, that is part of the history of San Antonio. And, you know, I don't think those animals are being mistreated. Exploited, yeah, just like we exploit them at the zoo, or we exploit animals that work for the police, etc. But I don't think that these businesses should be closed. So those are my comments, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage. Councilmember Pelaez.
Andy, I don't think we have a motion on the table, right?
As far as I know, no, Councilman.
We have a main motion on item 3.
Oh, okay, thanks. I'd like to amend the motion to include after horses the words equine or any other equine hybrid, just to make sure that we're capturing all the different draft animals out there. Andy,
is that offered as a friendly amendment? Is there any objection to adding that language as a friendly amendment to the motion?
No, Mayor, that could be in fact, I think we had equine in the actual ordinance, Councilman, so I think it would cover what the animals that you're talking about.
Okay.
It is equine in the ordinance.
Okay, great, thank you. So I've been on the record numerous times. You know, I think 3 years is not. Is too long, actually. I'd like to see these horses off the streets 2 years ago when this effort began. But I understand, and I'm okay with going along with the other council members for an additional phase-out period. So I'll be voting yes on a 3-year phase-out period. I do think that it's important to mention that there are a lot of really fantastic arguments around about this issue on both sides. I respect them, I hear them, but I just don't. I think in 2024 is the time to do away with this kind of activity downtown. Not fast enough for my taste, but I think we're moving in the right direction. As far as good arguments on both sides, which I respect. The one that I don't respect is defaming people, for the purpose of bolstering the argument. I'll tell you, I have an appointee named Katie Jarl, who can't be here today because she's recovering from surgery. But, you know, that lady works for a company that advocates for issues like telemedicine for veterinarians. And then to somehow conflate that into lobbying city council as part of a conspiracy theory to promote ulterior motives and electric carriages and all that sounds interesting, but it serves no purpose other than to muddy the waters, and it's really one of the more dishonest things that I've heard. And the lady up here who's peddling that garbage, shame on you. I will tell you, thank you to everybody who's participated in good faith in this debate, and thank you to my council members for taking this as seriously as this issue merits. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Pelaez. Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank all those who made the time to make sure their voices were heard today. I know it's been a long meeting, but I appreciate your engagement. As I've previously mentioned, my primary concern with the horse-drawn carriages is their potential to hinder public safety by impeding emergency vehicles and slowing down traffic. I've advocated for a one-year transition. The people of San Antonio have spoken, and they want these horses off the streets. I do, however, understand the business's need for a transition time. Therefore, I'm willing to concede to a 3-year transition. My preference is for these horses to be phased out regardless as soon as possible, and let's move forward with this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Alderete Gavito. Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a few questions for staff, and the first one is on the electric carriage that was presented today, and the follow-up there. So can you help me understand, maybe Richard, like if you all have addressed that matter just yet?
So yes, Councilwoman, the decision was made to bring that separately, so that would be a separate process where we discuss it with the Transportation Advisory Board and then to the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, something like that.
Rick, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in. I think the councilwoman was asking about the reference that one of the speakers had about the electric carriage.
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
My apologies, I jumped ahead of you, Councilwoman. Yes, so we are aware of that operating. We have cited that electric carriage on multiple occasions, and we've instructed our inspectors that if we catch them operating again as a vehicle for hire, so that's kind of the long pole in the tent, is showing that somebody paid to ride it, that we will impound that vehicle. So,
Got it. How many are operating right now?
so the owner has 2, one of which we know is operating.
Got it. And how many citations have they received already?
I think it's 2 right now.
Okay, and then impound. After that, at what point does the impounding happen?
So that's what we've told them. If we catch them operating
One
again
per
as a vehicle
time.
for hire, we're going to impound the vehicle.
And do you impound that vehicle or both at that point?
I'm sorry?
Do you impound that vehicle or all of his?
So we'll impound that vehicle that was operating illegally. Yes, ma'am.
Got it, thank you. And then, and I know we're going to talk about the electric ones possibly after this decision is made, but I'd also like to, whoever's working on it, and it likely will be you, Richard, just some alternatives for inclusion and accessibility. But those are all my comments for now, and I'm going to be listening to my colleagues say so. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Rocha Garcia. Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. So today I find to be a little bit of a sad day here in our city's history. It seems that the council's intent on becoming the first city in Texas to ban these horse-drawn carriages. I think all too often here at City Hall, we forget about or we don't do enough for the small businesses that we have in San Antonio. As has been already heard today, this is a lot of jobs that are on the line. These are a lot of people that have invested their time and capital in these companies. They provide, they're really part of our culture in downtown San Antonio. I am not in favor of what I think is going to happen today. And it seems to me, though, that if council's intent on eliminating these businesses, we should at least do what we can to make the transition as painless as possible. I mean, it's going to be a painful process for these folks, for their employees, but we need to do what we can to help them and their financial situation moving forward. And so that's why today, Mayor, I would like to make a motion to extend the horse carriage's tenure in San Antonio from 3 years to 5 years. So I think that would put an end date on the carriages at January 1st, 3030. And I hope that my colleagues would consider this motion and consider the owners, the employees, and everybody involved with these horse carriage companies and you know their livelihoods during the next few years of this transition.
Councilman, can you restate your motion? I heard 20, excuse me, I heard January 1st, 3030.
I believe that makes it a 5-year transition.
2030.
Yes.
Okay. There's a motion and a second for amending the main motion to be a end date transitioning out by January 1st, 2030. So we will have a motion, excuse me, we'll have a discussion and a vote on that first before we get to the main motion. Is there anyone that would like to discuss the amended? I mean, I will just make a couple of comments since we're going to vote on this amendment. To be clear, this is a motion for an amendment to a main motion that the councilman will vote against. So, a little disingenuous, but that's what is on the table. So, if there's no further discussion on the amendment, Councilmember Villagran.
I will be voting for this amendment because I hear the desire to phase out the carriages, and the carriages have stated that that 5 years seems to work. It's not ideal, but it gives them a point, and I think we need to go back. I will be voting against, and you can call it disingenuous or whatever you want. I will be voting against the 3-year phase because when I came to the council on September 30th, or around Halloween, I told you that this was not enough time. I asked questions. I didn't get any data. So I do not have enough information to see that this will be done equitably and fairly in 3 years. And any conversation and I co-authored this bill. When we started it in 2022, it did not get heard by the governance committee until 2024. So to say that we've been doing this we haven't. We just started this year. And so there's a lot of questions I have. So I will be, because I hear the council and their intent, so 5 years, but if this doesn't pass, it will be a no for the next round. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Villagran. Councilmember Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Rick, for the presentation. In a couple of months, this body will be up here saying, let's rodeo San Antonio. And we know that the San Antonio rodeo brings about 1 million in tourists and roughly $300 million of economic investment into the city of San Antonio. And then a couple months later, we'll be celebrating Fiesta, and we'll all be lining up to participate in parades with our cars and with horses in the mix, absorbing those exhausts, right? So I highlight those examples to highlight the hypocrisy of this body, right? Because it's always easier to punch down. And why aren't we having this conversation about those multi-million-dollar industries, but we're eager to kill 81 jobs rather, and 5 businesses, because it's always easier to punch down and hit small business. You know, there was a great article that talked about the economic turbulence with this incoming administration, but within this last month, this body has voted to repeal its protections for small women and minority-owned businesses, and here we are killing 5 businesses and 81 jobs. The fire is not coming from the White House. The fire is coming from this chambers. I did have a question in regarding to access to emergency vehicles. Are there examples in which these operators have impeded an emergency vehicle getting to an emergency?
There are no examples of that, Councilwoman. We haven't had any issues.
Thank you for that. And then in terms with the briefings that committees have received, can you share a bit about what the city's veterinarian has shared regarding the care of these animals? Did they cite any examples of abuse and or neglect with these operators?
So the city's contract veterinarian, Dr. Espy, did not cite anything in the one meeting that he attended at the Transportation Infrastructure Committee.
Thank you for that. I think, there's a couple of examples, and I hear the advocates and I hear your advocacy and the concern with the exploitation with all these other industries, but my goal is to highlight the hypocrisy of the folks up here that are eager to kill jobs when we know that there's economic uncertainty that many of our families are experiencing. These drivers are parents, caregivers, and they're taxpayers, and I don't see why my colleagues are so eager to kill an industry when there's larger profit-making industries where animals are lassoed and dragged for sport. But I don't hear that concern here. But what I am hearing from folks is, let's phase out this industry tomorrow, and some folks saying, we don't want to phase out our industry, but I am hearing consensus on how can we phase this out in a way that doesn't put our small businesses in the position of asset forfeiture and debt, right? And this is something that I've expressed that I do not take lightly, because these are Texas families that we're putting in harm's way by putting them at risk of debt, in accruing debt. I think one of the speakers did a great job at highlighting the circular economy in which not only is this killing the industry of the horse-drawn carriages, but also these folks Patreon other small businesses. And I think it's important to state whatever action this body takes, it does not waive their obligations to their landlord for their leases. It does not waive their obligations to provide care for these animals. With that being said, I will be supportive of the motion put forth by Councilman White because I believe it is a compromise that, one, does ultimately phase out the horse-drawn carriages, but does not put our families at risk of debt. Ultimately, if that amendment is not successful, I will not be supporting the phasing out of the horse-drawn carriages within 3 years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Castillo. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for city staff. In the last presentation that we received, the horse carriage owners requested 5 years because of debt that they had, and I asked for us to ask for evidence of that debt. Did we ever receive that?
Good morning, council members. Brenda Hicks Sorensen, Director of Economic Development. It was requested, and because of public information requirements and so forth, they were not willing to provide it paper copy or electronically. However, they were more than happy to allow us the opportunity to review. And as mentioned at the last meeting, I did have the opportunity to review a couple of those.
Was that after the last meeting that you saw additional evidence of it?
No, so prior to the last meeting, I had reviewed 2 of the 5 companies' financials.
Okay.
But
you hadn't, and since then, you were not able to receive any additional information on the financials?
We were not able to schedule. Again, the request was to receive the information versus review.
Yeah, I asked for the debt as well because I felt like the amount was extremely high and was wondering what small business, like how do we define small business? Because an $18,000 debt payment a month is a pretty significant debt payment. So I was looking for evidence for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was able to review information again for 2 of the companies to corroborate that debt. But again, we did not receive it due to concerns regarding public information.
And was that, because as I understand, it's 3 owners. It's 5 companies, but 3 owners. Is that the correct?
Combination of.
Okay, so they have multiple LLCs with 2 different groups that have 5 licenses each. Am I accurately depicting that?
There's some relationships there, but 5 separate companies, yes, ma'am.
And so was that debt on multiple companies combined?
No, it was individually as they report to the IRS.
Okay. Okay.
And 2 separate groups.
Okay. My challenge here is I asked for information. Thanks, Brenda. You can sit down. I asked for additional information regarding this to help corroborate a 3 to 5 year transition and didn't receive anything. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. Maria, can I ask you to come up for a second? So the amendment motion on the table is about a 5-year phase out as opposed to the 3-year in the recommendation. So obviously the phase out percentages of the hours is going to have to change. Can you describe how you would handle that?
Sure. So for consideration of this council for that motion that is on the floor, the current plan that we presented over 3 years will reduce the hours beginning in January of 2025. The council desires to extend the phase-out period to 5 years. Potentially, the city council could consider leaving the hours as they are today for the first 2 years and then follow what we had proposed in the ordinance for the last 3 for the total of the 5-year phase-out periods. But we would have to make, I'm assuming that addition to the motion.
Mayor, if I can make a suggestion procedurally, if Councilman White is open to that, if he could adjust his motion to say that to extend the transition from 3 to 5 years and adjust the transition timelines accordingly. So then we would follow the plan that Maria just outlined.
Okay. Councilmember White, did you hear what Andy just said about the phase-out hours?
Yes, happy to amend as Andy suggested.
Okay.
That should do it.
That's concurred by Councilmember White. All right. Is there any further discussion on the amendment, which is, again, a 5-year phase-out as opposed to a 3-year phase-out? Okay. If there's none, then let's go ahead and vote on the motion for a 5-year phase-out. And this, again, is just the amendment to the main motion. Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cabello-Haverda?
No.
Yeah. Okay, motion carries. So it is a 5-year phase-out on the table. So we'll now go to discussion on the main motion, which has been amended to a 5-year phase-out of horse-drawn carriages. Any further discussion? Councilmember Mickey Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start off by acknowledging how we got to this point. For more than a decade now, San Antonians have wanted to have a conversation about horse-drawn carriages and the morality of their use in this industry. So when I co-authored the CCR in 2022, I did so in the hopes that we as a city would have a robust, honest, and fair conversation about the horse-drawn carriage industry in our downtown. It's taken nearly 2 years to get to this point, and I believe my hopes have been fulfilled somewhat by the journey of this process. I've had the opportunity to meet with carriage operators on 4 occasions in the past few months, as well as animal rights advocates and other community members, city staff, and I've paid close attention to the input process especially. My decision today was made in a spirit of collaboration and compromise, and I do not take my vote today lightly. While my proposal was for a ban to have taken effect a year ago, and there are still many of us who would prefer an immediate ban, as well as those who would prefer a longer timeline or no ban at all, 3 years is the compromise we got to together. Today it seems like we're getting to 5 years, so I'm going to be supportive of it. And what I've heard several times is the argument that a ban on horse-drawn carriages is anti-business or anti-labor, and that's a very lazy stance to take with all the effort that continues to go into this transition. The labor movement is not just about securing fair and just working conditions for those who can advocate for themselves. It's also about preventing the exploitation of the labor of anyone. Anyone being forced to walk for hours downtown in 94-degree weather, breathing in the exhaust of cars driving past them, carrying a bag of urine and fecal matter without their consent is unjust, and that includes for these horses. There is a 2023 study that shares that carriage horses are forced to breathe in exhaust fumes, and this leads to respiratory conditions like bronchitis, rhinitis, and inflammatory airway disease. And a veterinarian found that the lung damage in carriage horses was similar to that of a heavy smoker. We've received that feedback from experts. So we have a duty to care for all, and I don't sacrifice the humanity of anyone in my decision-making, whether it's the black and brown folk who have been brutalized by police, whether it's the people living in uncertainty because the city council incentivized the demolition of their apartments, or the people who come to us choosing between medications, food, utilities, and rent, worried that they can't afford a CPS rate increase. And I have never taken lightly the fact that we are having a conversation about the livelihoods of people in this industry and their families. I believe that we are all interconnected, and I've been a consistent voice in that spirit. And I'm down to have the conversation about the rodeo and fiesta, police dogs. I'm down. So while this issue is complex, and of course we're not going to reach a point where every business owner will be happy, and it may be a challenge to find employment that is exactly the same, and there may be fear or uncertainty of how successful e-carriages may be as a new venture, we cannot let fear stop progress, and we cannot let this conflict prevent us from fighting together for a just transition beyond today's vote. My commitment is still there. We must do what is right, which is abandoning the horse-drawn carriages and spending the next 5 years supporting the business owners and the employees in their next steps. There will be an opportunity to support the purchase of e-carriages. There will be an opportunity for folk to find employment, whether through Ready to Work or another program, opportunities to transfer debt to zero-interest loans. We have so many tools at our disposal, and to think that we have to stop progress because we aren't creative enough to utilize these tools is tragic and short-sighted. The San Antonio City Council banned puppy mills in the city just a few years ago, which closed down several small businesses and left employees without a job, with no transition plan, with no phase-out period, none of that. They recognized an exploitative business model and shut it down, and I hope every person on this council would stand by that. We know that society increasingly values ethical considerations in how businesses operate, even when it means closing down or transforming traditional industries. That's why a majority of San Antonians believe we should transition the industry to e-carriages, and I do want to help us get there. So again, the argument that banning horse-drawn carriages is, anti-business, anti-labor ignores the fact that this industry is fundamentally rooted in exploitation. And while some carriage drivers may earn high wages, those wages come at the cost of perpetuating an exploitative and outdated practice. True pro-labor policies prioritize sustainable, ethical jobs with protections for all parties involved. If you believe yourself to be pro-labor and that belief has a limit, I'd wonder whose labor you're willing to see exploited and at what cost. So I'm disappointed by those who have chosen to stand aside sensationalism and fear-mongering rather than working to build consensus. The goalpost has been moved time and time again over the past 2 years, whether it's our horses are treated well, but the regulations prevent us from earning more profit, to the regulations are great now, but we need to be able to spread throughout downtown, to e-carriages will never be successful, so we'll start an e-carriage business if the city gives us money for it, and then again from our horses are like family and they enjoy walking on hot asphalt, to my horses cost a lot of money, and if times are tough, I'll sell them to a bad owner or send them to slaughter. And then from we don't want to be in other locations like Brackenridge Park, we need to be downtown, to we've never been approached with the idea of alternative locations. I have been consistent, however. Horses do not belong downtown. The business model is exploitative and they need to go. I've offered alternatives and I've been met with pettiness and insults, and that's unproductive. So I look forward to finally casting my vote in favor of this item today. There have been 2 years since we started this conversation to prepare, and there will be 3 more years from today, or from January 1st, to continue that. I've reached out, I'll close out by saying I've reached out to the Brady Hunter Foundation, which is willing and eager to support transition of horses to reputable and safe rescues across the country and provide financial support for the purchase of e-carriages. I look forward to the evolution of the industry from horse-drawn carriages to e-carriages. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Vicky Rodriguez. Councilmember Courage.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just reviewing the city code that was presented to us. Maria, maybe you can help us understand. With what we're considering right now, we would keep all of the code that is currently in place until January 1st of 2027. That's next 2 years. Then we would implement the changes that were being recommended to the code starting in 2028, 2029, through 2030. I do see a couple of things. It says no new permits to operate will be issued effective December 12, 2024. Would we still be keeping that? That Animal Care Services Department will not license new horses effective December 12, 2024. So we're pretty much saying that the status quo will continue, but no new horses will be added, no new licenses will be provided as of the end of this year or January 1st of next year. Is that what you would suggest would be the wording on this?
Yes, but let me just clarify, Councilman. So the changes that we would make to the document that was provided for this action is that the banning of the horses will be effective January 1, 2030. The other change would be the hours of operation. The hours of operations today will continue for the next 2 years, and then the phase-out period that we had initially proposed will start on the 3rd year. So the last 3 years will see a reduction in hours. Those would be the only changes to what we provided to you for this item.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage. Councilmember Viagran.
Thank you. Maria, I do have a few questions now that we've looked at the 5-year. I want to make sure we continue to have conversations, and then in anticipation of the events coming downtown, we will continue to keep the horse carriage and the owners in those stakeholder meetings. If we start to look at what I've been asking for almost every opportunity I get, a bigger, more comprehensive plan about how we deal with traffic downtown, can we make sure that they're part of those conversations? Because I do think that a lot of the issues that were brought up by the speakers today is traffic issues downtown, and we need to start making efforts to address it more holistically instead of by pieces, by saying no more horse carriages, reduce EV vehicles, close down this street. Can we make sure that we have them in those conversations over these next 5 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for your work, all those who came out and shared. I know this isn't the solution that everybody wanted it, but I think this is the solution in the correct step to make sure that we are handling this issue and we are actually having conversations. I'd also like to thank George Garcia, who's part of the Transportation Advisory Board, who worked really hard on this effort, continued to talk with me and talk with the carriage owners and my staff for their efforts. So I look forward to supporting this 5-year transition today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Viagran. Councilmember Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank Art Martinez and his team and their advocacy and meeting with us to ensure that we're kept well in tune with what was being discussed and what was not being discussed. I think the action that we'll be taking today is the compromise that you all proposed. I know it's not the outcome that everyone wanted, but I do believe it is that compromise that we should always strive for. I also wanted to thank Robert, my transportation appointee, who was sure to share with me that the committee unanimously did not approve, voted against the phasing out of the horse and carriages, but ultimately just what we're taking action right now is what the folks that I met with were asking that we'd compromise with. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Castillo. Any further discussion on the main motion? Councilmember White.
Yeah, just briefly, I want to echo Councilwoman Castillo's comments on this. I know this is not the ideal outcome for our horse carriage businesses, but I am pleased today that enough of my council colleagues are willing to compromise to give these businesses a runway here to sort of phase out in a more fiscally responsible and manner. So I do appreciate my colleagues on that, and I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Pelaez.
Thank you. I'll be abstaining today. 5 years is too long for me. I think it's wimpy, and it's really just a wet noodle approach to something that's very important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pelaez. Any further discussion on the main motion? Okay, well, let me just make a couple comments really quickly. No less than 3 times in the last 7 years, I've been asking if we could consider this, and so first of all, thank you to my colleagues, Councilmember Viagran and Mickey Rodriguez, for bringing this up and moving it through the process for which we are here today. I share some similar sentiments with my colleagues who want a faster timeline. We do want to do this in a fair and just manner, and I thank the staff again for working with these companies on solutions I know they're not solutions that we can all agree on, perhaps are even relevant for you, but we will do our best to make sure that the economic impact to you and your livelihoods are minimized. But the reality is, I have long believed, as our community continues to grow and as we see the increased activity of downtown, that horse-drawn carriages, novelty rides, do not belong in the main arteries of downtown. And so that's what I'm looking forward to addressing today. We've got other challenges that have been noted up here that we will have to address and look at. But in my view, having seen this and debated it one way or the other for the last several years, a 5-year phase-in, a 3-year phase-in, as long as we are moving in that direction expeditiously, I will be satisfied. My apologies to you, Councilman White, and I appreciate your amendment. If it gets more of our body on board with this phase-out, I will support that as well. So with that, there is a motion amended to 5 years, and with no further discussion, let's vote. Councilmember White.
Yes.
Councilmember Cabello-Haverda.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we'll move now to item 4.
Item number 4 is an ordinance approving amendments to the city's Economic Development Incentive Fund, EDIF, guidelines pursuant to Chapter 380 of the Local Government Code, originally adopted by City Council on June 3rd, 2004. 2004.
All right. Do we have a presentation, Brenda? Do we need a presentation, Brenda?
I will defer to you.
Mayor, I think it would be, Brenda can go through pretty quickly. There are a number of adjustments that were made based on the B session conversation, and we can highlight those and focus on that in the presentation.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity. Just given the request, I'm going to skip through to the changes that were discussed during the B session and have previously provided. I know one of the questions was the national and Texas comparisons, which we did provide to our benchmark communities. We also provided the participant organizations. If you may recall, during B session, we had highlighted revisions to the policy regarding a number of items associated with workforce, the wages, specifically power-intensive users, and then additional considerations that were raised were additional site enhancements, ready-to-work engagement, local hiring efforts, and safety-related reporting. I'm going to move on to those items that we specifically have addressed since B session. In regards to additional site enhancements, infrastructure needs, for companies located in certain parts of our city, we have added to our recommendation that those projects, in addition to Tier 6 projects on the matrix, those projects that have a combined equity score of 7 or higher are also potentially eligible for additional project funding for those site enhancements. The additional requirements regarding ready to work, we are recommending that we continue to work with, or that we work with incentive recipients to create a customized ready to work plan that includes both the interviewing and hiring of program graduates. We are also recommending that we require efforts for the incentivized company to hire at least 30% of their full-time equivalent employees from within the city of San Antonio, the ETJ, or Bexar County. And then for both the contractor, general contractor associated with construction projects, as well as the company once they become operational, that they submit their safety program that specifically addresses heat-related safety, as well as the OSHA 10 training or an equivalent. And then as part of that, we also are asking that they report the contractor's experience modification rating, EMR, that is a national standard for safety rating that is frequently used by insurance, including workers' compensation. So here is a summary of all of the revisions that are being recommended for both Chapter 312 and Chapter 380. Again, the ready-to-work engagement for both hiring and interviewing and hiring, local hiring of 30% from the city of San Antonio, the ETJ, or Bexar County. We did add, of course, some flexibility around hybrid workforce, which we previously addressed in B discussion. The base wages will remain at 80% of the area median income, which will go from currently $20.54 to $22.92 based on current data. That will be indexed annually, and it will apply to all jobs on site, not just the new jobs associated with the incentivized project. The additional site enhancements, which we specifically addressed already, as well as then those additional construction requirements, safety requirements. I do want to just highlight too that we are capping the abatement levels based on the estimate. So right now, while we might do an estimate associated with the incentive level, as the investment or whatever increases, that incentive may go higher. So our recommendation is, per the contract, we will be capping that. So it is staff recommendation that we adopt both ordinances associated with the Economic Development Incentive Fund, as well as the tax abatement guidelines, which would be effective from January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2026. I'll be available for any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brenda, for the presentation. We'll go now to public comment on item 4. We have a couple folks signed up to speak. Sarah Corubius-Rush, followed by Jack Finger.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, Mayor and council members. It's truly an honor to stand with you here again today. These incentives are so important to the work that we're trying to accomplish here in San Antonio, which is to bring jobs to the region that are changing trajectories for families throughout San Antonio. Our hope is that we are able to utilize these tools at Greater SATX and in partnership with you all to bring companies into this region that add to our economy, that add to our business climate, and that are partners in all that we're trying to achieve as a community here. As you all know, at Greater SATX over the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of success. We are nearing $6 billion in capital investment that we've been able to draw into the San Antonio region. And together, all of those projects have led to almost 24,000 new jobs when you look at both direct and indirect achievements. And those jobs are creating opportunities for our businesses, small and large. And so it's really important that we continue to drive those opportunities. This year alone, we've delivered more than 4,000 direct high-wage jobs across the city, with at least one win in each of your council districts. So we're very excited about that momentum and progress that we're making as a community. That momentum is not happening by accident, right? We are working to get ahead of the decision cycle where site location consultants and companies are trying to not include us, but eliminate us, right? Their goal is to go from hundreds of sites down to one. So they need to be able to quickly check off as many communities as they can. And we need to make sure that our policies are as business-friendly and easy to work with as we possibly can so that we're not getting eliminated before we even get a chance to have a seat at the table. I believe that the staff and the team has done an incredible job of working to thread that needle of the goals of this council and this body and finding a policy that allows us